I know. It's early in the morning, but I'm going to ask you again, how you guys feeling? Thank you so much for coming to the Mortal Kombat Behind the Combat panel. I'm going to go ahead and introduce everybody that's on the table right now. Beginning from my right to left. We're going to begin with Mr. Phil Han.
Dr.
Shang Tsung. I will be murdered. On his left, you have Baraka, Kano, Quan Chi, Cabal, Mr. Richard DeVizio. Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Reptile, Smoke, Noob Saibot, every imaginable ninja, even the ones that appeared in 2020. Mr. Daniel Pacina. Let's give him I guess we could give him another introduction. Mr. Kong Lao, the rock star, Tony Marquez. And last but not least, Kitana and Melina, Miss Catalin Ogren. And Jay. Yeah. And always forget one. So the way that we want to get this party started, we just want to jump right to questions. We want to get your questions. We want to hear what you want to know about Mortal Kombat. They have a lot of great stories about the making of the game. So there's a microphone right here on the front. So if you guys don't mind coming over for questions, really appreciate that. So who's going to be the first one to break the ice? Let's see. It's going to be like an auction. Number 2.
Break the Sub-Zero ice.
Here we go. We got one right over here.
Here we go. Quan Chi. Give it up for Quan Chi.
Eat that Fatality, Quan Chi.
We also have some questions prepared. If we want to take the time, that's okay. But we really, really want to make this panel about you guys. So, Mr. Quan Chi, what's your name, Mr. Quan Chi?
My name is Desmond.
Desmond, what's your question?
I just wanted to know that if you guys were able to have a fantasy cast for who you would like to play your characters in a live-action movie, who would you cast?
It's a great question.
I cast myself because I'm the one that, and actually each of us brought the energy to the screen from day one. And I would not really have anyone else on the screen except for us.
Okay.
So that's my answer.
Bill.
I think Kerry did a good job of acting, but he's not a martial artist, so I would have done the martial artist. So, split.
Okay. What about you, Calvin?
I'm blanking on the name. I would have probably cast.
Oh, something sort of.
Well, you mean other than her? I mean, she did fine.
Yeah. She wasn't as good as the original.
Yes. I think I would just cast another Latina actress.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
Ava Longoria.
At the time, I think it was a really big deal that we were a really diverse cast, which was not typical at the time. In general, that in the 90s, most casts, and with the exception of a couple of action stars that were Asian and, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, all that kind of stuff, there weren't a lot of Latino, action stars, certainly not females. So I think I would have really enjoyed seeing, maybe in the new movie, a Latina girl play the character.
Absolutely. As a fellow Latino, I appreciate that. Tony, who would play Tony Marquez?
Okay, so really, like in the new movie, I'm a big fan of Matt Wong. Yeah, I think he did a great job. But in the original movie, and we met all these cats also, during this time period. And I thought Carrie would actually look like a cool Kung Lao. So I really thought that. And all of us outside of Danny, let's just face it, it is whatever. But there's only one Kano. I don't care what anybody says. There's one Kano, and it's Rich DeVizio.
Well, yeah. Well,
it's the truth.
On that note, I do want to say something before Daniel takes the last answer. I spoke to Mr. Josh Lawson from the new Mortal Kombat film, and I welcomed him into our Mortal Kombat family. I thought he did a wonderful job. He was great on screen. I think he actually just took the film. So if you guys haven't seen the new Mortal Kombat film, yeah, he's great. So I guess if I were to choose someone to play Kane, it would be him. So
He stole the show in that.
yeah, Josh Lawson was awesome.
Yeah,
So
He did great.
good to him.
He did great, yes.
Yeah.
Still, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
Still.
Still. You know, there's whoever. But I can't stress this enough. I've been saying this stuff for 30 years. There's one Kano, and it's Rich. He is.
Daniel,
I've been doing this face since like 7th grade. So.
who would you pick to
He
play?
had more hair.
I had more. You were there. You knew. You saw.
Yeah, I would. Well, for Johnny Cage, I would do Ben Affleck because he's played Batman. And even though he doesn't have he has dark hair and stuff like that, I just enjoyed his work. So I think for Johnny Cage, Ben Affleck would be good. For Scorpion, anyone who would do rope dart. I think that's what it's missing on it. You know, the weapon that Scorpion yields is an actual weapon that I threw in there because it's an actual weapon that I like, but it seems like everybody who they get to play me as Scorpion, no one ever knows how to do the weapon, and I think that would be an important part. So
Maybe you could just do it.
you
know how to do it.
Maybe.
Hang on, but if Ben Affleck is playing Johnny Cage, then who's that? Matt Damon has to be Kung Lao. This would be great.
Well, I was saying Matt Damon would be Sub-Zero.
Yeah.
You know,
Jimmy Kimmel.
because when we were filming, they were kind of, the idea was that Sub-Zero was like a good guy. So he would be, and they're all supporting Liu Kang. So I think, yeah. So that's what the main two are that.
So now that you mentioned that, and maybe obviously the panel name is Behind the Combat. How was the filming back in the 90s? We know that it wasn't the technology that we have today. Can you guys talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the filming was.
Most of today's stuff is motion capture, and we were just doing this on like videotape, right?
Yeah, it was really experimental. Everything was experimental. We lost, John and I spent about 5 or 6, 8 to 10 hour days just trying to film a pathway, just learning what would work in the game even before we shot a character or invited the programmer in to take a look at
Now,
what ideas were.
Daniel filmed first, so all that footage of you filming first to try to figure things out, we had to go over that tape? Is that?
To save money, we erased all the original footage and taped over it. Because again, we were learning, we filmed for like 20 hours and then I come in and I was like, hey John, how did it look? How did it turn out? Because we were looking at it, but it's through a visor. So we couldn't really kind of see the moves, and he was like, guess what? I was like, what? He's like, we moved the tripod too much, so sometimes we were too close to the camera, sometimes we were far away. And so I was like, we got to mark everything. And he's like, yeah. So John marked where the tripod would be, while I started creating, like if you look at the behind-the-scenes footage, there's a little square. So I started slowly creating that. I put up stirrups, and I was like, hey, take a look at the lighting was desk lamp lighting. So
if you look at YouTube, you can do behind the scenes, and you'll see how crude the lighting was. It was like we were like a dark closet storeroom where we first started filming Mortal Kombat. And boy, that was like almost 30 years ago. Next year's the 30th anniversary. So, boy, yeah, right. See how I did that?
It was really hard.
But yeah, it took. Yeah, I mean, we were just.
If you want to hear more about it, I would suggest to stop at the table because, man, the process was really, really long, and there's a lot of stories.
A lot of stories. Yeah, come to our table after this, and we got stories.
So we are at table 653.
653.
Yeah. So bring your questions.
Get over there.
Actually, Rich created that phrase too. I'm just going to get because he never really gets credit for that, but the phrase "get over here," even though somebody else everybody else wants to do the voice and stuff like that. He actually created it as Kano.
When we were filming for that, and Daniel was doing the rope dart for Scorpion, I was there that day, and we were all going back. I'm not going to make this long, but when we were going back and forth on what to do, I had done a motion to pull the dagger and pull the guy back, and I said, "Why don't you just tell him to get over here?" And then I did an uppercut, and those 3 words. Ed Boon's voice was filmed for that later on. Recorded. But coining those 3 words, "get over here," I never knew that was going to become like this huge thing.
Yeah, a lot of times it was like jokes like that we just laughed. We were just laughing.
Just coming up with stuff on the fly, and that's how it is when you're working with your friends. We've known each other for a long time, and when you're with your friends, you're just coming up with stuff, just brainstorming, quickly. So that's kind of how it was. I've known these guys for years. Daniel, I'm 53. I've known Daniel since I was 13. So he was my first kung fu teacher, and I met Tony Marquez. Is it Tony or Anthony? Anthony just sounds better. I've known Tony since I was 13. So the 3 of us go back a long way.
And even that, I recall Catalin competing at tournaments, and she was like 12, 11, something like that. Crazy back in the day. But
let's go up a little bit.
We got a question.
Justin is waiting.
Justin, you're waiting over there.
Oh, hang on.
Hello, what's your name, Justin?
So, hang on, really quick, the other thing that really was different is we had to film the movements extremely slow in order for it to be captured for the frames per second that they could actually use for the game. So, we had to stick our sidekicks. We had to do back bends in slow motion. We had to trick the camera into how to fall slowly so that they could capture those individual movements, which really required a ton of skill. One thing is to you can fake kicks quickly, very, very easily. Film stars do it all the time, especially when the camera and action is going to be fast. But when you have to break down every single segment of a punch and kick, a sweep, a back bend, a flip, a front walk over, a back walk over, all that stuff, it was really, really challenging.
So what you're saying is we're all real martial artists sitting up here. Yeah, see, that's the thing is we weren't hired from an agency or anything, like an acting agency or anything. Some of us, we grew up with John Tobias, and
some of us never grew up.
Yeah, some of us never grew up. We're still kids at heart, but we've been doing martial arts, all of us here, for a very long time, since we were young. So it was kind of cool, it's different. You see the flavor, you see the personality in the what, Tony?
In the pixel.
That's correct.
And I think this is one of those things that really helps separate Mortal Kombat from any other video game. It is very much, it's like Rich was saying, we weren't actors hired from an agency or whatever. This was something that organically sprang up from a group of friends. And, these characters weren't established. It's really the personality of Danica Messina, of Rich, of Philip, of Catalin that really drove this game, and it is very much the personality and the pixels that really comes through.
I don't know if translated through the
yeah. When John was asking me to help him pitch the game, the Midway, he was like, "Who else could we get to work for cheap?" And then naturally, I started naming people who, because it was like, who was going to work cheap? And I was like, our friends.
And at the end of the day, a good day for us is a day just doing martial arts.
Yeah.
I got paid to do martial arts every day still.
And the day always ended with pizza or food or something when we were on set. So that was always a great thing.
Baker's square pie.
Yes.
Let's go with a question from
Justin Deering, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, how we doing, guys? So y'all shared some really cool stories so far about how y'all first met. From some of you, I want to know how everybody got into it. How did Philip first get into the clique? How did Catalin first get into the clique? That's my question.
Well, I think Rich, Tony, and Danny, they were the original clique.
Yeah, Tony was supposed to be Scorpion for Mortal Kombat 1, but he dropped a 25-pound weight on his toe and he broke his toe. And the process was, as Catalin said, was the kicks and everything had to be really, really kind of slower. So he couldn't, with a broken toe, he couldn't hold it like his balance like correctly. But you know, as we were looking for, you know, the whole thing was, you know, we were still creating like the pathway to the game in 1 and 2. So they were like, oh, we need we need to get other people involved. And like Helen and I, she worked out at the gym we worked at, and I was like, oh man, I know she knows martial arts like that. So we started watching her, and then her brother was really like, oh my sister was like does martial arts, she should be in the game, and
one of my little brothers was a member at the gym and just loved Danny. And he would be like, yeah, okay, kid. He was a fan. My brother was a fan.
Yeah, but
a perfect fan, a 12-year-old,
yeah,
maybe or 13-year-old fan.
Yeah, but at that time it was like we were looking to, because we're making the game in 9 months. It was really important, and we still didn't have that. Like in number 3, everything was solid. We already knew the formula for what the game was, but in 1 and 2, it was still a free-for-all.
Right, and you got
discovering stuff.
You got to imagine. Okay, so you know, Danny's talking about this game. Oh yeah, you know, we're doing this game with John Tobias, whatever. Yeah, that sounds cool. And oh, you're gonna shoot the ninjas, and I break my foot, and it's like, oh, I can't do it. But okay, so this is all pre-Mortal Kombat. It's like, no big deal. You know, they're working on a video game. Well, you know, what is this going to be? It's, you know, one of these things that, you know, one of these
game, whatever.
Suffered if you
if you knew, if any of you guys knew that, oh, this is going to be Mortal Kombat, you could have cut my foot off, and I would still have been able to. But it's like, oh yeah, whatever.
Different character, Tom.
so also competing.
Yeah.
You were that. From what I remember, you didn't want to risk. From what I remember, you tell me you were like competing. You were trying to get back at Diamond Nationals or something like that. And so it's kind of like you prioritized, and you didn't know how big it was going to be.
Right. We didn't know how big it was going to be.
So what about Phil?
Yeah, these guys talk way much more. So Tony and I went to high school together, actually, but he was a couple years younger. And in high school, that makes a lot of difference. So we didn't hang out. But coincidentally, I went to medical school, and I worked out for study breaks with Ho-Sung Pak, and that's how I got introduced to a little bit of wushu. I mean, I didn't do wushu, but I saw them do it, and then again, coincidentally, when I came back to the Chicagoland area for residency, I ran into him, and he talked about this game that.
Well, you ran into Ho-Sung Pak. Okay, that's Luke Can, everyone.
Yes. So at a restaurant, Shoney's in Barrington, I remember. Okay. and he was. I asked him about his Ninja Turtle involvement. He was in the movie, and then he mentioned Mortal Kombat, and I said, okay. I didn't know much about video games. I knew, Space Invaders and things like that back in high school, and he invited me out to Lakeshore Athletic Club where these guys worked out with him, and I started working out with them when I was in residency, so every couple of weeks or so, and before I knew it, this game was huge. Daniel invited me to meet John Tobias and Ed Boon. They saw what I could do, they saw how I looked, and so actually, speaking of Scorpion, Tony was supposed to play in the first game. Daniel offered me the role in the second game, either the ninjas or young Shang Tsung, and I said, you already played the ninjas, and Daniel's gonna say this, so I'll beat him to the punch. And I don't want to be covered up as much as he was in the first game, so I said, okay, I'll be Shang Tsung.
So they can see his face.
Yeah, and my physique was, like you could see Johnny Cage's when Johnny Cage was
young.
younger. Yeah.
He wanted to show that goatee, right?
Which John Tobias had to paint on me because I can't grow my own goatee. I don't have enough.
You could have some of mine.
We have a question over here. What's your name, sir?
My name is Tim, and it is so awesome to see you guys here.
Hey, Tim.
You know, back in the 90s, my friends and I spent rolls and rolls of quarters on this game. We would imitate your moves and stuff. And then we all, got married and had kids. And that's a tough game to be a parent. And I wanted to ask those of you who have kids up there, I know my friends and I would love to hear parenting advice from our old heroes. If you have it, fantastic. I would love to hear it.
I'm going to go again before some of them do. I have a 20-year-old daughter, junior in college, pre-med. She's way ahead of where I was, straight A student, star athlete in tennis. So I'm going to pitch my book. It's all over. I mentioned parenting advice and how I was involved in the game in my book, which is at the booth. So you could read all about it. But most importantly, you need to be involved with your kids. Quality of time and quantity of time. That's the simple advice.
I've gotten this question a lot, and I've always just said, definitely it's parenting. There have been violent films out there way before, any violent entertainment out there way before Mortal Kombat, and definitely it comes with the parenting, and you just teach your kids, this is not real, it's fantasy, and I have a 17-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old daughter, and once you guys stand up, you're in the front row here and wave to everyone. And they turned out all right. So, Dad is Kano. Their dad is Kano. So, but yeah, just your kids will turn out all right. Just talk to them.
How many boys' hearts have you ripped out, kids?
What about Kevin? What advice do you?
I like. Oh, good.
No, your kids are grandkids.
Oh. No, here. Let's roll this back for a second here. I'd like to reiterate what Phil was saying. Is that no matter what, it is quality and quantity of time spent with your kids. As long as you're involved with them, everybody's going to make mistakes, and it's a journey that we're all on. But if you're involved with your kids, it's the same thing. Rich's kids are right here. He's always around, and this is going to be something that's going to connect them. My son, went to school for engineering, but ultimately he runs our martial arts gym. He's been, he does the Kung Lao movements in the new Mortal Kombat games. I mean, we're just connected. Phil, his daughter's beautiful. She's great. She's a star student. He did everything right. My son kind of grew up in a bar because that's what I would hang out after we would work out. But we're still connected. He wouldn't be in the bar by himself. He'd be with me.
and Tony would pass. We would all help take care of Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was all of them. All of us would be around and making sure that he was okay.
Yeah. So spend time with your children. Be involved, and then it doesn't matter if they're playing Mortal Kombat, if they're watching, whatever horror movie. They know that your parents are there to help them, to guide them, to be with them, and then it's just a beautiful journey. I'm sure Catalin.
You got to have a good support system. That's pretty much it.
Catalin?
Well, I am a little bit more disciplined. Maybe how the fathers to the right. If my husband were being interviewed, he would sound a little bit more like them. But as a mother, I have 3 kids. I was very fortunate that I opened my gym and martial arts school way before they were born, so they grew up in my school, which is a really cool privilege, as Tony knows, to have your child around and immersed in martial arts. So that's my one thought. My second thought is that, I started learning weapons at 9. So, I never thought I could take my sais to school and use them. I never thought I could take a samurai sword. I never thought that I would pick up sticks off the ground and start hitting somebody with them, even though I did staff. You know, and all these things, there was discipline and structure that went along with it. So I just kind of emulated a lot of those same values when I had children, because I had martial arts weapons in the house, but just like the vase on the table, like you can't throw balls in the house. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. There's art on the wall. Marcia, you can't throw balls in the house. You know, it's kind of like the same set of rules. I also, adjust to what my kid is and who my kid is. My favorite thing to tell my children is, the world's not equal, and I'm not treating you all equally, and you're not going to each get equal privileges at the exact moment in time. I have this big discussion now over phone. My youngest wants a phone. Well, they got a phone. You're not responsible enough for the phone. It's like it is what it is. So I think as far as raising children, especially in an environment where there's a lot more exposure, for me, there's just got to be a lot of rules. I had a lot of rules in my house, but I had a lot of freedom, and I had a lot of love, and I had a lot of involvement, and engagement, but I had a lot of rules. So I'm a little bit more like I would if I were teaching a martial arts class in my household, that you follow the rules or there's consequences.
I want to live in your house, but I just kidding.
Yeah, I think moms are just a little different, right?
She's great.
But
Thank God for that.
I'm by no means a softie though. So I'm gonna say, besides time, love and discipline. And I just consider myself a loving disciplinarian. You have to find that balance. And yes, you have to be individual, but finding that balance is very important.
Thank you for your question, by the way. Let's take another question. What's your name, buddy?
Can you hear me with this thing on?
What's that?
You can take lower it.
Oh, that's fine.
Unmask.
Things hard plastic, that's why. When all was said and done, when you finished the game, everything was ready to go, did they actually let you guys play it and you guys got to play against each other at all?
We played it all through the development. Yeah. Like at one point it was just Johnny Cage versus Johnny Cage. But Johnny Cage didn't have a name yet. Like all those names, the names for most of the characters were later. The characters was just known as Danny. So Danny was playing Danny, and then we would kind of just play as it was being developed to see how it looked and to add more moves.
And usually like right around when the game's going to come out, there's usually like a consumer trade show or something. So we would actually go to the trade shows, and then we'd play right there on the floor of the convention center when the game was being promoted, like in the like game conventions and stuff like that. And there's actually footage on YouTube of Daniel and I and Tony, I remember when we were young, and you could see us playing the games, which is really cool to look back at that footage.
Yeah, but a lot of it was, during the development, would all just be hanging around the offices or whatever, and would go there all the time, whether Rich shooting or Danny shooting or Catlin or Phil, and would just be hanging around and, go to John's office and play whatever version of that game was there at the time. And you got to remember that, especially, there's a group of us that, like Catlin was saying, we're very competitive. We're very competitive in martial arts. We're competing across the country or whatever. And so then you have your characters, being developed in the game. And you walk in, oh yeah, so this is what we have so far. And then you have this version of Kung Lao, unfinished version of Kung Lao versus Johnny Cage. And I don't know what I'm doing because, it's just a new character, a new game, don't know any of the controls. And Danny is like whooping me. And it's like, even though these are just like digital representations, it's like, wait a second.
I don't know how to throw the hat yet.
Yeah. But mind you, from the time I was a little kid, Danny would be whooping my butt, whether it's on the floor or in the game.
Oh my God, I was relentless, man. I wouldn't even let him, because he was just beginning to play the character, and I played a little bit, practice much more than he did, so I wouldn't even give him like a break. I would just be throwing at him, stuff like that. You'd be like getting aggravated.
So, I want to just throw something out here. So, Tony is saying that, when they were young and Danny would be on, because we're like 10 years apart. So I just want to go back a little bit to kind of how we met. So I'm 53 now. Imagine me, I'm in 7th grade. Okay? I'm in 7th grade. And there's a kid that comes to school with a pair of nunchucks.
It wasn't Catalan's kid, that's for damn
sure. Wasn't that? And so he's doing all this cool stuff, and I'm 13 years old. And I said, where did you, and I had never seen Bruce Lee yet. I didn't grow up with Bruce. I played baseball and stuff. So he's doing all this stuff. And I'm like, where did you learn that stuff from? Now think about this. This kid, his name is Craig. He says, well, I learned it from this guy named Danny. And that guy, Danny's sitting right next to me. Right? So, and I'm like, I got to learn that stuff. And this kid, Craig, was taking Kung Fu lessons from Danny. And so I got to go and meet him. And then started taking lessons from Daniel. And then Daniel brought his other Kung Fu friends, because at that time, you were doing Kung Fu, I think, at Northern Shaolin 7-Star Praying Mantis, which was in the north side of Chicago. And I think that's where you met Ho Sung Pak, Ho Young Pak, and Tony Marquez. And I remember he brought them down to the south side, and we got to work out with Tony and Ho Sung and his brother Ho Young for the very first time. And I was so intimidated by these guys because Tony and Ho Sung, who eventually is going to be Liu Kang, and these guys were just on top of their game martial arts wise. And I'm only 13. I'm so impressed by these guys at what they're doing. They're doing like all the Jackie Chan stuff, like really cool traditional Kung Fu. And I'm like blown away. And I'm like as a kid, I'm like, I gotta be that great, as good as these guys are. And these guys are phenomenal. If you haven't seen them do their work, visit them at their schools in Chicago, or look for them online. Tony is EKF Martial Arts. Yeah. Daniel, you're
Master D Pacino.
Master D Pacino.
All about brain.
They both have schools, but these guys are amazing. I love them. Been with them forever, but yeah, they're great. So.
Thanks, bro.
Hey, Rich deserves some credit too, because he talks about being 13 years old and watching that. There's some great footage on YouTube of him actually performing martial arts in Chinatown. Am I correct? Right? That was
Rich.
Yeah. So
staff.
It's really, really cool stuff. And when I watched that, I was the one that was like, "Whoa, that is."
Look up Richard DeVizio Wushu on YouTube. We got another question?
Yes, we do. What's your name, buddy?
Jonathan.
Jonathan, what's your question?
So I got a 3-part question. So I want to hear how you guys came up with some of these ideas for the fatalities, number 1. Number 2, how did you film them? And then number 3, did you come up with any ideas that were so bad that you couldn't actually put it into the game?
Yeah, fatality. So for fatality, so John and I are filming, and we at the beginning, we wanted really for the game to look like a movie, like a martial art movie. It wasn't like what we got was just because of the limits of technology, but the idea was to have it more look like a martial art movie, like two people fighting each other. But so we're looking at the footage, and John turns to me, he's like, "That's it?" And I was like, yeah, it's just me kind of in the end, just kind of with my hands down, because we didn't have the circle yet.
So how are you going to finish this guy up?
Yeah, so John was just like, that's kind of boring. You can't end like that. We got to think of a way to finish him. You got to think of a finishing move, you got to finish him. And so that's eventually where that word finish him came from, because I was like, yeah, it's kind of boring just to see a guy do that. So John was just like, how do you want to finish him? And then I was like, you know what? I want to jump up in the air and punch the guy in the head, and then he turns towards the camera and has a hole in his face. And that is the first ever fatality. And then we filmed it, and John was like, dude, that's too complicated. Think of something else.
Graphically, he's got to,
Yeah, because there's no Photoshop. So he's got to take all those frames and cut it all out. He's just like, that's too complicated. So then I was like, well, you know what? It would be cool if like he loses all his strength and he drops to his knees and then I beat him and then I punch his head off. And then we filmed that, and John was like, he's like, you know what, we should film 3. Every character should have 3 fatalities. And this is Mortal Kombat 1. So I was like, he was just like, what would be the third one? And I was like, you know what, the third one should just be simple. I should just knock his head right off. And so that's how the fatalities started to be created. Then each character actually created their own fatalities.
Tell them the Liz story. I love this story.
Yeah.
Please tell them. This is a great story. Liz, about the butterfly thing and all that.
Yeah. So for Sonya, John was like, okay, you got to think of a finishing move for Sonya. And then I was like, she has to do the kiss of death. And then John was just like, she can't come up to you and kiss a person. We can't do that. And I was thinking like, wait a minute, we can kill people, but you don't want to show a female kissing a guy. And it just made me laugh. And I was just like, no. It would be cool if she kisses her hand and blows it towards you, and it looks like a little butterfly going like this, and when it hits you, boom, you blow up. And then Liz looks at me, and she's like, why do I have to kill other people? I don't want to kill anybody. Can't I be their friend? Can't I give them a flower or something like that? We could just be friends.
Yeah.
So we all were just busting up laughing, and I told everybody about that. But then Mortal Kombat 2 had friendships.
Oh yeah, that's how the friendship began. Yeah. See how things just develop on the fly.
So our next question. What's your name, buddy?
My name is Braden. I'm a #1 fan of yours.
My best
In
fan.
between the Mortal Kombat universe and all the genres and your past journeys to all the different franchises and the best villains, by the way, Shao Kahn, Shinnok, Onaga, and the one being from Mortal Kombat. Out of all the cinematic universe of your franchise, now here's a question I would like to ask you guys.
Yes, sir.
Would you rather beat Street Fighter or beat Tekken?
Street Fighter.
And why?
Because my husband likes Street Fighter. that's pretty simple, because he's always like, I don't want to play. Like, really? Because it was like this thing I coveted when I first met him and we were dating. And I didn't tell him about it because I thought it was going to be like, what was mine? Like, we protect my identity kind of thing. And I told him, and he was just like, oh, yeah, I don't really like that game. I'll never forget that. It was like on our 4th date or something. So yes, I would want to beat Street Fighter. Because we still argue to this day in a fun way who would really win character against character.
Yeah.
Well, he must be really great in order to get past that. I'm surprised you didn't kick him to the curb at that point. Oh, you know what? We're done here.
That carried a little.
All right.
Yeah, a little.
All right, good enough. Good enough.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome. Sir, what's your name?
Kwame.
Kwame, what's your question?
Yeah. I remember playing like Mortal Kombat 2 in a barber shop when I was 9 years old.
All right.
I was not supposed to play it. But I remember back then, the game was huge because in school, there'll be a whole bunch of secrets that probably weren't true. And I think that's how that game got so many quarters, because they'll say, oh, well, you can do this, you can do that. They gave me this as a finisher. And I remember my first time playing it, I was playing as Liu Kang, and I did a finisher, and both the characters just started dancing. And everyone in the barbershop was like,
Yeah.
like, how did you do that? Like, how did you do that? What did you put in to do that? I didn't know this was in the game.
That was Hossam, yeah.
That just fueled the rumors of, oh, they can get naked, they can do this, they can do that. Like, did the game come out and you guys hear any of these rumors and know, like, that's not the game. You can't like play as a new side body in Mortal Kombat.
I
don't
was-
know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but it's so crazy that one time I was doing an interview with John Tobias next to me, and John is like mentioning, he's like, some guy came up to me, and he's like, and he told me there's a secret character that he saw in the game, and John looks at him and he goes, no, we don't have that in the game. And then the guy's arguing with John. No, he's like, no, there is this secret character. And John is like, no, there isn't. And then this guy keeps arguing, and John looks at me, I'm out of here. And he just walked away from the interview because the guy was like, and then later on, John is just like, dude, I created it, because John is actually the guy who had the vision to create this game. I know we got to collaborate and co-create with him, and so did Ed. But John really had the vision. You know, when we pitched the game John asked me to pitch the game to Ed, but because he had this vision. But this guy was arguing with the actual creator of Mortal Kombat about what character was actually in the game. It was really hilarious.
I had little brothers, so I would hear them say, I heard this is in the game, I heard that's in the game, and I would just go talk to Danny.
Uncle Danny.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question. Hello, what's your name?
Robert.
Robert, what's your question?
I have a lot of good memories of playing Mortal Kombat in the arcade, Enchanted Castle specifically.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm curious if you have any memorable moments of watching like other people playing these games, just out and about, maybe not even at an arcade, but like, at a restaurant or a bowling alley.
I have one. What was it, 25-year anniversary at Doc's?
Yeah.
At Galloping Ghost Arcade? Wasn't that, what year, whatever year it was, we did an event. It was actually my first event ever with you guys since the game. And my kids came, and I watched them play, and like all of a sudden had an aha moment of like, oh my God, this really still is big. It wasn't like a couple years ago. It was that huge event.
25th anniversary.
So that was my aha moment. It took me a little time.
When in 1995, I worked for a game company, a small game company. I was an artist, and we had gone out to lunch to, like, I think in Aladdin's Castle or something, and Mortal Kombat was there, so, I'm going to play it. So I chose Kano, and I'm playing, and there's this little kid next to me, and he just says, did you pick Kano because you look like Kano? And I said, no, kid, I picked Kano because I am Kano. And here's the thing. You would think he would just say, like, right away, like, oh, wow, whatever. He says, this kid's probably like 8. He goes, Richard DeVizio? And I'm thinking, and at that time, I don't think I remembered or I knew that at the end of the game, our names are in the credits.
Yeah.
So this kid like knows my name, and I'm like, I know my name. He's like, yeah, you're Richard DeVizio, you play Kano. And so I said, yeah. I'm like, I pull out my driver's license. So he runs off somewhere, so I think he's scared. So I continue playing. Next thing you know, I look over my shoulder, and this was during the days when you were in an arcade, and the like the arcade guy had like a coin thing, like on his waist, and he would like push out all the tokens. And he came around with a bunch of like little wooden pencils and like pieces of paper, and he gave it to all the kids, and they all wanted my autograph. And that was like the first time I'm like, wow, this is like really cool. And this is like 1995 actually. So that's my story of a fan. That's a good story.
I remember even younger than this 8-year-old, a 5-year-old kid playing Shang Tsung against me. Shang Tsung. I don't know how to play any other character. And he whooped me. Fatality and everything, I think, in 2 rounds. And he didn't know who he was playing against. So I said, and his dad was with him. So I said, want to take a picture? All 3 of us. Then then his dad realized who I was. So it was, I don't. It was before Gallagher was.
It feels really cool.
Thank you for your question. What's your name, Tom?
Yes, my name's Tom. I'm a Capricorn. What I really want to ask is just in your introspection on, like, to this day, Mortal Kombat's big as ever. Even the video games, all the way to the movies, your characters have lived on. I wanted to know, what does that feel like to you? How much you've impacted the culture and things along those lines. How do you feel on that side of things?
I would like to say that as a kid in 1977, Star Wars came out, and I am a huge Star Wars fan. And being, what was I, like 9 or 10, something like that. Since that time, I had always wanted to be involved in something that was special effects, behind the scenes, filmmaking, things like that. I never knew that I would become, a character in like a major franchise that would last 30 years long. And now today, just being a part of that, it's just kind of fulfills a little something like, I'm not Star Wars, but, or Indiana Jones or any of that kind of stuff, but all the great films we grew up with, if you're, right around our age, we're lucky enough to be a part of that age of time. There's a lot of cool stuff came out, and now it's all like retro and everyone's into it. It's great. I love seeing that whole thing come back. It's built this whole like cosplay thing. It's just amazing. And to now be a part of something that's still going on, it's historic. And I love that I'm a part of it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to thank you to all the fans that have kept it continually growing through all these years, because if you guys didn't love it, it wouldn't be where it is today. So thank you.
Yeah, really, really quick. Like for me, when I see like not only the game, but when I watch actors like portraying our what we created or the characters and stuff like that, when I see them doing stuff, the things that we created, I always smile because I remember the stories of how that was created. Even when I'm watching a movie Scorpion do Scorpion, I start smiling and I love it. Plus, it doesn't suck. Anybody who acts like me is all right with me. Or, I'm sure like that. But when I watch him and doing stuff, and I just kind of smile because it just takes me back to how everything was like created, because it was really, us goofing around so much. There's so many stories, like untold stories of just the shenanigans we were up to.
I was in a store, sorry to cut you off. I was in a store called Box Lunch in the mall. They sell a lot of cool retro stuff. And I glanced down and I see this t-shirt with Sub-Zero and Scorpion on it. And I'm like, that's my friend Danny. He plays Sub-Zero and Scorpion. So I had to take a picture and send it to him. But the shirt actually says, "Get over here" on it. And I'm like, I created that. And that's my friend Danny on the shirt. I'm like, I should have, I think it was too small for you to wear, but anyway.
And you did send me the picture.
I did send him the picture, but to see things like that, are kind of cool. That's awesome.
What about you, Phil?
Yeah, when I was young, unlike Star Wars and so forth that Rich grew up with, I wanted to be a professional athlete, and I said, wow, it would be cool, to be able to influence young people and so forth. And so I, now I get to live that, and for a while we were in between, a couple years after filming it, and recently we were back to, being anonymous, but at least I was. But now, now everyone knows Mortal Kombat. Even like I taught some professional athletes Taekwondo. I saw one recently, and he didn't even know that I was in this. And when I told him, I don't even play video games, but I know Mortal Kombat. I think my son has it upstairs. And so, so the fact that I got to live out, sort of the fantasy of being in the limelight a little bit. It's great, but also being able to, then people find out I'm a physician, or the other way, some of my patients find out that I'm in the game, and so,
My doctor is Shanks.
Yeah, exactly. One literally said that recently, and so it's cool having an influence that way. Just knowing that people are normal, that they're positive role models. I definitely want my little celebrity status to be
a positive thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
be a role model for young people.
Absolutely. We got time for 2 more questions. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
What's your name?
Anastasia.
Anastasia, awesome costume. What's your question?
I wanted to know, did you know that there was going to be, special guest characters?
Do you guys know
like
any?
with Jade and Reptile and so forth? Is that what you mean?
Special characters.
Like in Mortal Kombat 11 with the Joker and stuff like that.
So what are your thoughts?
I'm not as in touch with what the current game is doing.
Yeah, I think when I look at it,
Animated driven.
yeah, when I look at it, I think they're just promoting if some movie is coming out by Warner Brothers, they just get to promote it in Mortal Kombat because Mortal Kombat fans are really fanatical. So if they put Freddy in,
Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, you know what? Mortal Kombat fans will go see that movie.
And sometimes I
Because
kind of
it's
know
related to
about
Mortal
those
Kombat.
things, but I'm told not to say nothing. So
We can't comment on Mortal Kombat 11. I'm just
but sometimes we would know some stuff, but we just couldn't say it.
Well, thank you for your question. All right.
Somebody's hiding.
I want to want. You do tomorrow.
She's too shy to step forward.
What's your name?
Get over here.
She's hiding over there.
She's convinced you won't be able to hear her.
Oh, we can.
I told her there's a microphone. That's why.
Yeah. Well, she can come up front too.
Want to come up front? Come closer.
I was shy when I was 3.
She wanted to know favorite fatalities.
Favorite fatality?
Great question. Great question.
The filming standpoint, or there's got to be one that was like, oh, that was just so cool to do.
Well, my favorite fatality is ripping out the heart. The way that we did that was, I've always been a fan of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and when the guy gets lowered down into the pit, I think they do a ritual before that where the guy rips his heart out. And when John Tobias and I were filming, we're trying to figure out what the fatality is going to be, and I said, why don't I just reach in and just grab this guy's heart out and hold it up like that? And that's how the heart rip came to be. So they say that supposedly when I was moving my hand that I took a bite out of the heart and then held it up. So I'm old now. I can't remember. But I don't know.
I remember that. I remember him taking the bite out.
Okay, I guess I took a bite.
Yeah, and John Tobias saying, no, we cannot do that.
All right, I guess I took a bite.
It was funny where the line blurred.
I'll have hearts at my table for sale. They'll taste like apples. Hey, that's a good idea. No.
Phil, mine's gotta be "Your soul is mine" because that's become a catchphrase.
Tony,
I gotta get this out there real quick. All right, so I must have been maybe 4 or 5 years old, and it's Christmas time, and I'm with my older brother, and I want to go see Santa. Okay, and we're standing in line, and I'm so excited to go see Santa or whatever. And we get up to, it's almost our turn to go see Santa. And I tell him, and I'm so afraid, I'm so shy to go see Santa. I go to my brother, oh, let's get out of here. And that always bothered me. It bothered me that I had my shot and I didn't go see Santa. And I would never let that happen again. Please, never be afraid to do something. Okay? Nothing, more often than not, when you take your shot, things are going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, So what? There's another shot to be taken. But please, never let fear dictate your action.
So what's your favorite fatality? Like I don't know already.
Okay, we're going back to the vertical half slide. That's got it.
Tamlin, what was your favorite?
Spitting out the bones.
Okay.
No, notice how the basic premise is what they created is their favorite.
Then we got that.
So, Dan, what's yours?
Mine is actually Sonia's, and actually I created it. So my favorite one is Sonia's because when it's just that whole story of how I think it's more not the movement, but that the story of how it was created was always just I just laugh. I'm like, man, that's the best because it's the creation of this, the story behind it.
That's cool.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Before we wrap this up, I just want to remind everybody we're at table 653, table number 653. We're going to have photo ops, autographs, and we're also going to have a special photo op opportunity at our table where the cast will be wearing their costumes. So please, please, please come to our table, say hi, talk to us for a little bit, and I want to take an opportunity to thank the cast of Mortal Kombat being here. Remember, if you know
2 p.m. is the
photo op
in costume.
In costume.
I brought a rubber heart too, so
remember,
so I can hold it up.
Doesn't taste like an apple.
Remember that if you see a little kid playing Mortal Kombat 11, remind them of the heart and soul of Mortal Kombat, the cast of Mortal Kombat.
The heart.
Thank you, everybody. See you in a few.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, 653. Make sure you're there.